Hi, I'm Jason Slama and welcome to this GWENT guide. This video will focus on helping you better understand the dynamics between the rounds in order to help you succeed. GWENT, being a best 2 out of 3, means a match will last either 2 or 3 rounds. In order to make smart decisions in earlier rounds, it's important to understand the later rounds, as this is where the impact of your early decisions will be most keenly felt. In a decisive round, neither player can afford to lose. Both players are left with what they managed to save from previous rounds and must succeed with their remaining cards. 3 cards are drawn to help reinforce your hand from the start, so the contents of your deck are of critical importance. Your remaining deck size will influence the odds of you drawing your stronger, higher provision cards. Even if you don't immediately draw your champions, having fewer cards in your deck also increases the chances that your mulligans will grant you that higher provision finisher required to win the match. Cards that play or remove cards from your deck, such as Wild Hunt Riders, are often referred to as thinning cards. Most successful decks contain at least 1 or 2 thinning combos in their deck. Why? For one, they are typically worth a respectable amount of points in themselves. More importantly, when played successfully in earlier rounds, they reduce the number of cards in your deck, reducing the chances that you will be stuck with undesired cards later on. Some decks try to thin themselves to the point where you can actually play your entire deck, and these are referred to as hyper-thin decks. Once card draws and mulligans are done, things become somewhat more straightforward. Both players deploy all their cards in the best order possible. There really is no reason for players not to play all their cards at this point. Victory at this stage often comes down to what you managed to save in previous rounds. The player who managed to save stronger cards or keep a stronger combo often takes the match. Now, let's move on to round 2, which is much more complex when it comes to scenarios and decision making. If round 1 ended in a tie, both players need to win round 2, and thus, this round becomes a decisive round, exactly like round 3. In this scenario, both players throw everything they have at each other. There is no holding back. Otherwise, round 2 is quite different for both players. The winner of the first round is in the driver's seat. The loser must keep playing cards until the winner passes or opens him up to herself to defeat. This dynamic opens the door for the winner to bleed the opponent. When we say a player is bleeding another opponent, it typically does not refer to the status seen on some cards. In this scenario, the player who won the first round does not play this round with high expectations of winning. Instead, he continues to play cards to try and force his opponent to use his more powerful cards and combos as they become available in the third decisive round. When bleeding, it is often best to play your least valuable cards, which are often your low provision bronzes. Be careful here, as some decks rely on their bronzes to perform powerful combos, and in that case, it might be better to throw down a more seemingly powerful gold card. Bleeding can backfire, however, since it is possible for your opponent to keep their score higher without committing as many cards as you. This could leave you with a severe disadvantage if you end up with fewer cards in round 3. Despite the risks, knowing when and how to bleed your opponent successfully can be critical to success, especially against decks that thrive in a long decisive round. A deck that favors a long round is one that has a lot of engine cards that gain value the longer they are on the board. If you notice your opponent is playing more cards that grow in value over time, such as the Svalbard Priest, while playing little destroy or damage cards against you, chances are your opponent's deck will get its best value in a long round. One important aspect of round 2 is that you should keep track of your hand size. If you have 7 or more cards in your hand when you pass, you'll be guaranteed to have 10 cards in the next decisive round. Since a player's hand can never be more than 10 cards, this ensures that your opponent will not have card advantage over you. Card advantage is gained when a user has more cards than his opponent at the start of a round. While this does not guarantee victory, the user with more cards at the start of the final decisive round will be granted 2 significant advantages. The most obvious is the player with the most cards will have extra cards worth of points to play. The other advantage gained is known as last say. A player has last say when the final turn of the round will be theirs. This is a significant advantage since your opponent will never have a chance to react to the cards played in this turn, and thus cannot react to it at all. Therefore, they typically cannot destroy or even damage it. Victory is often achieved by saving a very strong card or powerful combo as a last say. An example of such a combo is keeping Dagger 2 Blades, which gains 1 point every time an enemy is damaged, as your last say card, and combining it with a way to do burst damage, such as the Reckless Fury Leader ability for Skellige, which deals 1 damage 8 times. This combo gives you a 20-point play that cannot be interrupted by your opponent. If you tried this combo earlier in a round, your opponent could use a card like Geralt of Rivia to remove your Dagger 2 Blades, which would be a whopping 15-point counterplay, undoing your awesome combo pretty decisively. When the winner is playing in round 2, it is also popular to dry pass when they start the round with 7 or less cards. Dry passing is when the winner of the first round passes at the start of the second round without playing any cards. Since your opponent is typically forced to play a card to win this round, this often helps the winner recover from card disadvantage that they gain from winning the first round. This allows them to start the decisive final round with an equal number of cards and, more importantly, last say. A common mistake is for players to dry pass when they have 8 or more cards in their hand. At this point, playing a card does not affect who has card advantage or last say in the next round. But by playing cards, a player can do 1 or 2 things. First, they can try setting up some less critical engines. If your opponent believes that you will pass regardless at 7 cards, they might not react strongly to these cards and not remove them, opening the door to actually play round 2 with the goal of winning. Secondly, you might want to play 1 or 2 of your more powerful cards. If your opponent once again starts playing for a longer round, or doesn't, he might be playing initially his weaker engine cards, leaving him too far behind to efficiently take the round after you pass. Let's do an example. Let's say I have 9 cards and my opponent has 10. I'm down 1 because I won the first round. I open by playing an Ericus Nest with the Ericus Swarm Leader ability, creating me 5 1-powered drones. My opponent answers by playing a low-cost engine, such as the Haymate Protector, which gains power every time a neighbor is damaged. I am now winning by 1 point, but my opponent knows he can safely play 2 or more cards while I only 1. So I go big. I use 2 charges of Ericus Swarm to spawn yet 2 more drones, and followed it up by playing Carinthier to spawn an Kikimora Queen, which, being set to 1 power by Carinthier, immediately boosts itself from Carinthier's power, and additionally boosts all of my drones by 1. Okay, that was a bit complex combo, but the point is, I now have 19 points versus my opponent's 4. He now has to take 14 points with his next 2 cards, or risk going into round 3 with card disadvantage. If he plays something big and closes the gap, I pass knowing I force him to play something more powerful, potentially breaking one of his combos for the next round. If he plays something smaller such as Dim and Light Longship, I would consider following up with a strong combo card such as Yennefer of Vengerberg, which would boost all my units by 2.
Nothing to pick up when I'm done with you.
Every turn you must decide whether to keep pushing and bleeding your opponent, or pass and hope he either sacrifices key cards he has planned for round 3, or enter round 3 at a card disadvantage to catch up. Let's move on to round 1. With a better understanding of key concepts in round 2 and 3, it's much easier to delve into the decisions available in round 1. Since the match continues whether you win or lose this round, victory is not critical for either player. This is often why advanced players weigh carefully the value of every card they play in this round. Let's start by understanding how your decision evolves as your hand shrinks. Since in all subsequent rounds you draw 3 cards, you can play the first 3 cards from your hand without risking giving your opponent card advantage in later rounds. Thus, it is almost never to your advantage to pass with 8 or more cards in your hand. Another hand size milestone to consider is in round 1, when you reach 4 cards. If you pass and win round 1 with 4 cards in your hand, you will be able to dry pass in round 2. This situation can be favorable as you can easily get laissez, though without gaining card advantage in this scenario. Though tempting, it is not always wise to use your tactical advantage on your first turn. This opens your first played unit to potentially becoming vulnerable to high-powered removal cards such as Geralt of Rivia. However, since tactical advantage does not persist into later rounds, it is advised to use it when you believe you are more likely to pass in the next turn, as otherwise it will be needlessly wasted. This is why when you are playing your 3rd card, you should start considering whether you intend to play further into the round to determine whether you play tactical advantage or not. Since being the victor of the first round leaves you with more tactical options, it is often advantageous to win the first round. However, overcommitting to winning a round for victory is often a bad idea. Overcommitting is when you play very strong cards or combos in the first round, especially when you're already winning and don't need to. This means your best plays will no longer be available for you in later rounds. Generally, when possible, it is wise to play weaker, lower provision cards in earlier rounds. This is especially true when you are already winning, as if you take a large lead, your opponent is not forced to also play his stronger cards. He can simply pass and keep his stronger combos for later rounds, giving him an advantage. On the flip side, if you see that your opponent is heavily investing in the first round, it can be wise to keep playing your weaker cards to trick him into committing even more into this round. Lastly, let's dive into the dynamics that change depending on who goes first. The player going first has the tactical advantage card for a reason. Every card played can be counterplayed by the opponent. If the player goes second, he can keep going for just 1 more point than his opponent, and this leaves the first player in a tricky situation. If the first player passes while losing, especially as cards go below the thaw threshold, there's a higher risk that he will enter the 3rd round with both card disadvantage and without laissez. When going first, it is generally better to either win the round or pass when your opponent failed to play as many points as you. There are many more subtleties and strategies when it comes to playing Gwent. Not always are the scenarios presented the right option. However, hopefully these concepts presented today will help you dig deeper and learn how to turn the dynamics between the rounds to your advantage. When deciding what card to play or whether to continue in the first place, make sure to keep focus on what you will do in later rounds. It can be easy to make decisions solely based on trying to go for card advantage or laissez in the decisive round. True mastery comes to those who can strategize for all rounds right from the start and adapt to what their opponent reveals to them. Remember that, like you, your opponent is juggling which round to commit their points to.